Hey, everybody. Welcome to Thursday Night Book Club. My name is Leah Pearson. I'm excited to chit chat with you guys tonight. We are starting let me get my screen right, brand new book here that I'm excited to kind of open up. We're going to spend a couple weeks doing this together, and um, I have really liked it. I may have read ahead a little bit. So, this is what mine looks like. What got you here won't get you there. Amen to that. I think we've all probably heard that from our uplines before, right? So I know that this is going to be really good. Um, there is a moment in everybody's growth journey where our next level requires some kind of refinement of who we are in our leadership. And that's exactly what I'm seeing in this book so far. Like, he's not talking about, grind harder or do these specific trainings or like training on a specific thing, network marketing wise. He's not talking about like another system to add. This is not a network marketing specific book, but it is success and leadership principles. And that really deeply matters with our business here at Plexus because our businesses are built with people and on people, and our influence grows as our team grows. And our leadership doesn't scale without self-awareness and continued growth. And I'm sure you have heard that from your uplines, right? So if you're liking this book so far, let me know in the comments. But I really think that it's going to be pivotal for the longevity and the growth of my business, your business, all of us. So one core message that I'm kind of seeing early on in this book is that the behaviors that create success early on can really quietly become like a limitation later if we don't continue to grow. Or that we could, things we could get away with previously could be things that are holding us back from our next level. And I thought it was really interesting. The author, he works primarily with very highly successful people, CEOs, top leaders. And what's really fascinating is he's basically saying like they're not failing because they lack talent. They fail because they stop noticing themselves and they don't have self-awareness and they're not growing personally. Like, that is just kind of mind blowing. And I think that, he's kind of saying like as leaders grow, they can fall into maybe talking more, listening less, assuming things, assuming good intent, is going to equal good impact on the people around them. They maybe rely on past success instead of present awareness. And there's an important distinction to realize. You can mean well and still miss the mark with how you operate your business in your day to day, or even in your relationships or your habits. And I think, he's just really reminding us growth is going to require humility. Like, this whole thing I'm reading it, I'm like, I need to be humble. Like, that's what I keep thinking. And so in chapter 1, that just is kind of the foundation. He's like, okay, here's where you are. And the key truth I think that he's sharing with that is success does not eliminate weakness. It can magnify it. Kind of like, hey, this is actually what's going on with you or what needs to change. And he talks about how people can become clueless about their position or proprioception, how basically like your inner compass can go out of whack after you've achieved success or even achieved some success. And he's essentially talking about how simple behaviors and bad habits after some level of success is a normal thing. Like, that's something that's normal and happens. And it's important too. On page 9, I think it was, he talks it out, point it out, like you need to be aware of it, show the havoc that it's causing, and then you need to demonstrate that with some behavioral change, what can happen if you're changing and willing to grow. I know I need this. I need it. And I'm sure you guys feel that too, pointing out my bad habits, showing, okay, this is the havoc it's causing in your life, and then demonstrating this is what can happen if there's change. And I think that's so simple, but so powerful. And the premise and the purpose of this book is really just like, all right, this is a roadmap to success from where you're at right now to where you want to go and where you're going, but warning you that, all right, where you're at, that's not what it took to get there. That's not what's going to take you to the next level. And if you've been in part of any group coaching, any coaching calls, on any team calls, you probably have heard that before. Even to the extent of like our leaders saying like the team that got me to Jewel is not the team that got me to Diamond, like we talk about that a lot. So I think we're all on the same page with that. But chapter 2, he was talking about like habits that hold us back. I think is what it was called. But the chapter just really kind of introduces the idea that it's small habits, not I mean, big mistakes aren't good either, but it's small habits that really limit leaders, and that's something that can kind of like fly under the radar. And, he lists some of those things like needing to be right, withholding praise, not listening fully. Like, has anybody been guilty of any of those on a coaching call before? Like, just saying, I know I have. And again, humility, like, all right, Lord, I need more humility here, which is a dangerous prayer, but I'm here for it. What he's really saying is what I'm picking up is most leadership breakdowns don't happen like in the big moments, it's in the daily interactions. And I think in network marketing, you don't have teammates that leave because of one bad day. I think leaders can lose trust in inches, not miles. Like, it's in the little things. And culture within your organization is built on the conversations, the day to day. Jamie's done some incredible trainings on culture. I think that's why we've got such great culture here, is because she's aware of like those little things. I see that with all of our diamonds, and I just so appreciated that coming in. And I think that we do a good job of being aware of this, because you often hear on our team and with Plexus, like, people will remember how you make them feel. Essentially, we say that in different ways. That's huge. But he ended chapter 2 with a golfer analogy, and he was talking about how golfers, they spend so much time tinkering with their swing and putting in the time, and it's because they want to get better. And I loved that he said, like, the spirit underlying this book is aimed at anyone who wants to get better at work, at home, or any other venue. He's really championing us to just be aware and start thinking about our habits and our relationships. And so, like, if you are reading this book, if you're in this book club, if you want to get better, like, you need to like submit to the, like, all right, like the humility and just this process that I think he's going to lead us through. To go with chapter 2, I just wanted to share like some things that I was thinking about. I always am trying to be aware, and one of the ways that I do that is asking myself questions and journaling that. And most of the time trying to share that with my upline. And I think that's really, really important. And I can put these in the chat when I'm done sharing too. But I just kind of wrote out some questions that I'm going to ask myself, and would encourage you to think about this too and write it down. And maybe even I probably am going to write it down right in my book, so that if I come back to this a couple of years from now, I can look at my growth. But in regards to personal awareness, I just wanted to ask myself, and so I'm asking you to ask yourself too, what small habit might I be overlooking because it doesn't seem like a big deal, but could be limiting my growth as a leader? I think that could bring some change to your life. In regard to team and relationship, what I'm asking myself, and encourage you to ask yourself, do the people I lead feel more corrected or more encouraged and empowered after interacting with me? So not just correcting them, not just steering them in the right direction. Are they feeling encouraged and empowered to go do? In regards to leadership and duplication, if someone on my team shows up with my habits and or leads, how I lead, would it strengthen our culture, and would they be successful? Like, what do your habits look like? What does your leadership look like? Is that going to duplicate well? So that's what I'm asking myself. Chapter 3, he was talking about the success delusion and why we resist change. And kind of like what I said at the beginning, this chapter really explains why successful people, or even people who have experienced some success, maybe you have, come through some of the ranks in Plexus, and you've experienced some success, you can still be the hardest person to change. And he calls this the success delusion, the belief that because we were successful, our way must be right. Like, I had some success, so I must be good. And one key thing that I heard in this chapter was resistance, like resistance to feedback, resistance to change, resistance to examining ourselves. And, people who become successful tend to believe that they've earned the right to stop listening. That's a quote. I don't remember where that was, but that just made me think, AKA stop being coachable. Like, they're just not being coachable anymore. And, like, I think it's really empowering to hear, like, I hear our diamonds talk about how they are getting feedback and going back and forth with their mentors, and they're always trying to grow. The very thing that created success can make growth feel unnecessary and uncomfortable or even threatening. And I think that this is a great warning to us, that if we, instead of asking, what do I need to improve, we subconsciously ask, why should I change if things are working or they did work? I think that's a good warning, like when you have that resistance, that you're maybe slipping into this. Um, and he talked about how success, can reduce humility and shrink curiosity and all of those things. And I think this can show up in our business with, a lot of different things. Maybe someone who's been in momentum and then they come to a screeching halt because they just stopped doing what got them there. Like they just stopped doing what actually got them into momentum, or someone who isn't taking feedback or being coachable. So they're staying at the same rank and not recognizing what's actually holding them back. Even if maybe like your sponsor has shared it with you, but you're just not, like, I just keep thinking it's like just not getting over that hump. Or it could show up in like a common problem or a cap on growth that you have, like despite your sponsor encouraging you to change, maybe like you got some duplication in your first level but you never really had silvers or duplication in levels 2, 3, 4, something like that. Or like a justification of your bad habits, like with not being consistent with IPA, or not writing down your IPA because I don't need to track, or whatever, like stuff in your day to day, or not reaching out about the business, or onboarding new business builders. Like it's just, like I said, not getting over the hump, not being willing to do something outside of what got you to where you are. So anyway, I think it's just really important to not close ourselves off from awareness, and growth slows not because leaders are wrong, but I think because they stop being open. And the moment we believe we've arrived is probably when we're going to stall out. So, and then I really loved the quote at the bottom of 32. I don't know if you guys picked up on that. Um, that was so powerful. Like basically, it's important to figure out why you're here. Do you know why you're here? And he said, is it money, power, status, popularity? Underneath that, there's like a real motivation as to why you're here. And if you know what you truly value and why you're really here, if that, what you truly value, is actually being threatened, that's what's going to push you to change. So I think that would be huge to really reflect on, outside of money, outside of power or status or popularity. Why are you really here? And if you know that internal drive that you have, it's going to hurt enough that you're willing to change and willing to humble yourself. So that's what I was thinking about. But I would love to hear from you guys. I've loved these opening chapters here, and I'm excited to dive into this more.
So I was thinking about like my vision board actually, and the idea of like the you are here. So because I plan on redoing one soon, I actually want to do like the you are here and like put like a map through it because I thought that would be really cool. And then like writing quotes from the book like along the line from the map, like from where I am to Diamond, just because I really like this book so far. And I really liked the idea of thinking that sometimes we need to like pause for a moment and kind of orient ourselves, like where we are. Because whether you're in a new season of life or like you've ranked up and so now things are different because, you're managing builders or, whatever that looks like, the thought of kind of like when you go into a new mall and you have no clue where anything is, like not even the bathrooms or, whatever, and you need to take that second to kind of just, get yourself together. I thought that's a really good reflection that could benefit us maybe even like a couple times a year to just take a second and be like, okay, where am I? And how are things different, because like maybe the mall you're in now has like two levels or whatever. Um, and so just that like analogy really I felt like was good for me. And I liked the idea of, like I said, just taking a second to say like, okay, this is where I'm at now, but like what's my new map like per se? Because our businesses are constantly changing all the time. So
Yeah, that's good. And there are, some habits that got you to senior gold, Justina, that like obviously you do need to continue, but I think it's just that kind of like the golf swing, like the continued refining. Like we're not reinventing our golf swing, but there are some fine-tuning things that we need to do. So that's good.
But like on the bottom of page 7, um, and Leah, I think you touched on like the beginning of the phrase or that paragraph at the bottom of 7, but the phrases at the end where he points out they think they have all the answers, but others see as a as arrogance, or they think they're contributing to a situation with helpful comments, but others see it as butting in. Like, those are all such good self-reflection, like thoughts of how do we view ourselves compared to how someone else might perceive it, or if it's flip-flopped, like if someone was like handling things in the same way that I'm handling, would I see it as the first part of this, or would I see it as the second? And just honestly reflecting on some of those, and then thinking like, oh, I'm just being misunderstood or whatever, but like taking a minute to really think about those things. Like, am I being misunderstood, or is that how I'm really like acting? And is it really true that these things could very well be not just a perception, but actually a reality? So it's a good self-check paragraph right there.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like I've read in like two different books the last couple days, like the more defensive you are up front, the more you need to grow. Like you need to have that self-control and the humility where, like, yeah, you need to be able to let people speak into your life. Yeah, that's a good section.
I'll piggyback off that a little bit. Because I was thinking about just in terms of the whole thing that we've read so far, the thing that kind of stuck out to me was it doesn't matter what our intentions are, what our words are, even if it's the best of intentions or the best decision and it's right or it's wise or whatever, it matters more so, especially in leadership and in communication and when we're working with other people, be it with Plexus or in family and whatever. It matters how other people perceive it and how they receive it. And if we want to have good relationships and communicate well and be good leaders and be successful, then we have to be able to have enough humility to realize, okay, yeah, this is along those lines with those questions that Amanda just said, like, here's maybe what I'm saying, or here's what I'm trying to get across, and here's my intentions. But if that's not being perceived that way, or if someone it's, we have to also be able to read people, right? Or be able to ask the questions. And I just think that's so valuable and important and something that we all need to master when it comes to communication and relationships. And that's important in all walks of life and for all of us to do, to be able to best help people, to be able to best serve people, and to best lead them as well. Because we're going to be working with people with all kinds of different personalities, and how you even communicate with one person could be totally different than another. I've used that example before with even Fallon, like she can be very red or very point blank, and she can maybe communicate with someone else that she's coaching one way, but if she would have communicated that way with me, I probably have been like shut down and freak out. So like you have to know the people that you're communicating with and how they perceive things as well as not getting defensive, and it goes on the other side of things with people too. If someone's communicating to you, you also have to not be the first one to quick get defensive either. It kind of goes both ways, but I just thought that was really important.
Who else? I know it's hard to follow Jamie.
Okay, so I think that I was in the right book. Um, because, but was there not a section on there that it said, I'm trying to find it on my thing here. Um, it says something like these are the steps that you take, right? Is that in chapter 3? Like these are the steps that he like leads to people. Yeah. Anyways, one of them was something like the first thing that I have people, one of the sec or the second thing I have people do is apologize.
Mm-hmm.
Was that a thing in in these chapters,
Yep.
or did I read ahead?
Yep.
Okay. Um, it just really like sticks out to me that something that just I don't know. I don't always I think apologizing is such a big deal. Um, I wasn't a great communicator yesterday, and I was in a store, and I got home and I was like, "Oh my goodness, I really wish that I could go back to this store and I would tell these people that like the way that I communicated was not appropriate and like that I was sorry for the way that I spoke and just like behaved and things like that." And I just I don't know. I think that like in my own home, like getting people to apologize. I live with teenage boys, so but getting them to like admit that maybe things weren't quite right is really difficult to do. And I think that it's just an interesting thing that, you know, we just don't always do that. We don't always think to apologize. And I think it's just a really important aspect of growing and becoming who we were made to be and created to be.
Yeah, that's really good. I think it's John Maxwell that talks about like the vulnerability is what breeds like trust, and like I think that's just like a vulnerability thing, right? Like how much more respect are you going to have for a leader if they come to you and apologize, about something, or like how much stronger of a uh, relationship are you going to have? I remember reading that in a parenting book for the first time and being like, oh, yeah, like I should apologize to my kids if I lose it. That's probably good, right? Yeah, like that's going to strengthen our relationship. So, yeah, I think that's really good. Reopens that communication line. Thank you for sharing that. Anybody else? Did this section like make it like did it sting for anybody? Because I had some spots where I felt like it stung. Is it just me? A little kick in the pants I needed. Was there anything specific in your business that came to mind as you were reading that you're like, yeah, like this is something I've been avoiding? Confess your sins. It's okay.
Well, I just think you're like really basic statement of sometimes it's just like we just quit doing the things that got us to where we were in the first place. And I don't know if it's like life or complacency, or you start getting like in enough of a rhythm where you don't think you need to like keep track anymore or be so systematic about everything. And then that stuff starts like
Hmm.
getting lost and I, yeah, like overcomplicating it, but sometimes just going back to the really basic things again, um, and focusing on the simple steps that were there at the beginning instead of getting all lost in like I need to be a good creator and I need to do all these things to add value and I need to make sure it's all balanced and what like just do the simple things.
Hmm.
um but I mean this like those questions we talked about earlier are not necessarily questions but those paragraphs of just like how do people perceive you and like you're entrusted with relationships that are being brought in um that that come to us and I mean yeah we all have a thousand things we're trying to take care of as women in our households but that's like never an excuse to not like take care of the people and follow up that have come to us and I feel that a lot like just really truly feel like God has entrusted these relationships to me and those are hard questions to go through and be real about with myself at times and then balancing that with the true order of like we always talk about relationship with God, with our spouse, with our kids, and then with our profession, and keeping that balance while also being really intentional about the relationships that God's placed in our life through Plexus. So always balance, swings this way, and just trying to settle in somewhere in the middle. But yes.
Yep, that's good.
I think we lie to ourselves
Mhm.
very easily, and it's a dangerous thing to get into when it comes to having some success or learning, and then feeling like kind of that feeling of a arrival, whether it's just even at whatever rank you're at. It could, or even amount of time you've been here. So that could play out by, being on a team call and be like, oh, well, I've heard, like, I know about this. It's on follow up or on recruiting or something you've heard before. And just not being humble enough to look for the nuggets that you can apply personally, or being honest with yourself with maybe you used to do these things very well and intentionally, but now, being honest with your behaviors and what you're actually still doing or not doing. Also, I think it can be dangerous to be in a position where you feel like, well, I should be further along than what I'm at. Like I've been doing this and this and this, and I should be this rank, or by now I should be this. And I think that puts us in a dangerous position too, in terms of um, our expectations and elevating ourselves, maybe, beyond what we've worked for yet, or there, whatever it may be. So I just think it doesn't serve us to be in that headspace. Let me put it that way. It doesn't help us get better. It doesn't help us improve when we're in that kind of headspace. So I think it goes back to what you mentioned, Leah, with being humble and being honest with ourselves about what we are and what we're not doing, what we believe about ourselves, or um, how we can continue to apply ourselves and learn and not think that, we've are above something or have already learned it before. It doesn't matter if it's a team call that we've done that topic, you know, 50 times in the last 10 years. Like I still look forward to that same topic to come up and what I can learn from it, even after all this time. So, um, I hope that, everybody else does too, because I think we're all always in a state of needing to learn.
Yeah, for sure. And I think I could just keep thinking too, like it's not like I know he's talking a lot about like relationships and how you're interacting with people, but it's also like how you're interacting with you and like if you're being like what you were saying honest with yourself about the work you're actually doing and what your habits actually look like and you can have that success delusion thinking I'm doing all the things but you're not even actually consistently doing IPA or like that's a delusion too. So it starts with like that personal integrity and how you're showing up with you and then also that bleeds into relationships and how you lead other people because like John Maxwell always says you have to lead yourself first. So Starts with you. It starts with your habits and your integrity, and that bleeds into your relationships, which is also important, but it starts with you. So we are past 9:30, so is there anyone else? All right. Thanks for joining. We will see you guys next week. I don't remember what chapters, 4 through 6, I'm assuming. Check the post. No?
Nope, I was gonna quick mention that actually. I don't think this is posted yet, but I'll get a post up there with like what each week is because it is gonna be a little bit different.
Okay,
Tried to base it on the pages because there are some chapters that are like this next chapter 4, we actually have to split in half because it's so long. So it's not going to be the same exact thing every time. So just pay attention. But next week will be chapter 4, habits 1 through 8. And then the following week is going to be chapter 4, habits 9 through 20. So that chapter is split in half. So
cool.
chapter 4, habits 1 through 8 for next week.
Okay. So make sure when that post goes up that you tag your people. We will see you guys next week.